15 years now.
So over the course of your career, prison sentences have got longer, and yet you're here to tell me that they've got shorter.
Yeah, from my experience, it seems...
We can't keep saying from my experience. This report has counted all of them, Reese.
In this exchange, a police officer with 15 years on the job, someone whose profession is rooted in facts, data, and proof, rings James to insist that prison sentences have become softer and more lenient. There's just one problem. The numbers say the exact opposite. And what happens next is a slow, uncomfortable collision between personal belief and documented reality. Just one calm question after another, backed by evidence that simply refuses to bend to opinion. Before we jump in, tell me where you're tuning in from. And remember to like and subscribe. Your support helps the channel grow and keeps these stories coming. Because this isn't just about sentencing. It's about something much bigger. What happens when lived experience is treated as superior to nationwide data? What happens when confidence replaces verification? And what does it say about our politics and our public debates when even trained professionals start trusting instinct over evidence? Let's watch this unfold. And when it's over, I'll explain why this moment perfectly captures one of the biggest problems in modern political discourse.
What I find a little odd about your contribution, especially as did you say you were a police officer?
That's right.
Is that the sentences are longer than ever before. They've gone up by 40% since 1993, and you think that you've watched an increase in leniency.
Absolutely. So from my experience with sentences, we've often seen sort of a specific example would be around the paedophile hunters and that type of offending. A lot of suspended sentences around that type of offending, which I would ordinarily have expected custodial sentences for. I'm all for rehabilitation.
We can pick specific areas, I suppose, but the numbers are not debatable. The average custodial sentence for an indictable offence in 1993 was 16 months, and now it's 22.5 months. So there's been an increase in prison terms by about 40% over the last nearly 30 years, and you think there's been a reduction.
For me personally,
but we have to stop there, because that is a beautiful illustration of the two questions that we're asking today. Here are the facts. Why do the British public believe the opposite? And you as a police officer are just denying the evidence of your own eyes and ears. There's been a 40% increase in prison terms. That's the severity of sentences. That's not the total number of sentences. It's gone up from 16 months to 22.5 months. How long have you been a police officer?
15 years now.
So over the course of your career, prison sentences have got longer, and yet you're here to tell me that they've got shorter.
Yeah, from my experience, it seems...
We can't keep saying from my experience. This report has counted all of them, Reese.
Yeah,
it's counted all of the sentences across all of England and Wales for all of the years between 1993 and 2025, and they've gone up by 40% in length, in severity. And yet you're here as a police officer with 15 years on the clock to say, oh, well, in my experience, the opposite is true, as if that matters.
Sorry, so are you saying from the statistics they're saying that the actual sentence is longer opposed to more people are being sent to prison?
The severity of sentences, which has led to, more people are being sent to prison as well. I thought I'd made this pretty clear in the introduction. So the number of people being sent to prison has gone up from 124 per 100,000 in the population to 139 people per 100,000 in the population. And the severity of the sentence has increased since 1993, so under Labour and the Conservatives, by 40%. And I don't want to fall out, but it doesn't matter how many times you say, in my experience, the conclusion you've arrived at as a consequence of your experience is the polar opposite.
Yeah, that seems wild that's the case. But if there's, but
it's not going to change your mind, though, is it? These bloody statistics, these numbers, these actual facts.
Well, I think we all can draw conclusions from what statistics come from and how we arrive at them.
You can draw one conclusion, and the conclusion is that the severity of sentences has increased by 40% since 1993.
Where are these statistics from, James?
This is David Gauke, the former Justice Secretary, who spent the last 6 months looking at all of the numbers.
What a trustworthy source that is.
Well, he's not an MP.
Was he not a former MP?
He's a former MP, yes. A former Secretary of State for Justice. Well, so nominally, your boss.
I rest my case.
What case are you resting there, Reese?
The statistics, how you want to present them is how I'd argue.
Okay, and where do you get yours from?
Ultimately, from experience...
This is from the Independent Sentencing Review.
Right. Why? The other question I'd want to know, James...
I just want to know where you get your overall national figures from, if not from the Independent Sentencing Review.
I wasn't talking from my national statistics. I was talking from lived experience, James, and the amount of time.
But where do you get your national figures from? Because you just said you can dismiss these. You said, I think, case closed or I rest my case. So what is your case? Where do you get your numbers from?
I don't think they're my exact words, in fairness, James. But
you said I rest my case.
The point I make is that I think statistics can be leaned whichever way.
So which ones do you prefer?
For me personally, James,
No. For the whole country. That's what the independent sentencing review. We can't all have our own statistics. You have 60 million people in the country. They all choose their own statistics. The ones that the government will use to legislate and the ones that the population uses to understand what is happening and the numbers involved. I give you the independent sentencing review. You, Reese, 15 years in the police service, give me...
I personally think for the country...
No. Where do I go? The website, the statistical collation, the expertise that has been deployed to count all of the instances that we're discussing. The independent sentencing review is good enough for everybody else, but what do you use instead?
Personal experience, lived experience.
Right.
That's all I can draw from, other than a former MP giving me some statistics.
No. It's the independent sentencing review that he is using to explain the facts, in some cases, obviously, pointlessly.
Well, I'll listen, if they're the facts, they're the facts. But from my lived experience...
They're the facts, but I know better from my lived experience.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying from my lived experience...
It is what you're saying. It's exactly what you're saying. I've given you 5 opportunities now to tell me where we should go instead of the independent sentencing review, and you've said my lived experience.
I can only go from my lived experience.
No. You can go from the audited, collected statistical facts that deploy countless people to determine exactly what is going on in the country. You can go to that, or you can just go to your lived experience, and that's fine. I've done my best, and there it is. I mean, if you get arrested by Reese later today, great news. You're going to get a really lenient sentence. If you get arrested in the real world, you're probably going to get a sentence that's 40% longer than it would have been in 1993. And there it is, the most perfect, albeit unintentional, answer to the question of why does the British public believe things that are demonstrably untrue? Because of, what was it again? Lived experience.
What we just witnessed wasn't simply a disagreement about sentencing. It was a perfect live demonstration of how a personal reality bubble gets built and then fiercely defended, even by someone trained to respect evidence. Reed didn't ring in unsure or curious. He rang in convinced, absolutely certain that sentences had become weaker, that the system had gone soft, and that his lived experience proved it. And this is where things get revealing, because James doesn't respond with opinion. He responds with data, 30 years of it. Independent review, national figures. A clear, measurable fact. Custodial sentences are around 40% longer than they were in the early 90s. That should have been the end of the argument, but it wasn't. Instead of challenging the figures or offering competing data, Ree retreats to something far safer for him, from my experience. And in that moment, the discussion quietly shifts away from evidence and into feelings, not because the facts were unclear, but because they were inconvenient. This is the exact maneuver that defines so much modern political debate. When the data doesn't match the belief, the data gets discarded. What makes this moment especially unsettling is who the caller is. A police officer. Someone whose professional role depends on evidence, verification, and proof. And yet, when national sentencing data contradicts his personal narrative, the facts are treated as optional. The statistics are waved away. The source is attacked, not on the quality of the research, but on the identity of the person explaining it. James then offers Ree multiple chances to ground his argument in something concrete. Another study, another review, any alternative national source. And every time, the answer circles back to the same place, lived experience, as if 60 million people can all carry their own version of reality and still expect society to function. And that's the real takeaway here. James's final line lands because it exposes the contradiction perfectly. In Ree's personal reality, sentencing is lenient. In the real world, backed by audited national data, it's significantly harsher than it used to be. And that gap between feeling and fact is where public trust erodes, where misinformation thrives, and where shared reality starts to fracture. That's the battle we're watching play out again and again, not left versus right, not tough versus soft, but evidence versus emotion. And until we decide which one matters more, these conversations will keep ending the same way. So what stood out to you most in that exchange? Was it the refusal to engage with the data, or how calmly the facts were ignored? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you found this breakdown useful, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one.